Congress makes its first vote on the Farm Bill, and it's a no. Meanwhile, the Secretary of Agriculture visits Nebraska. This week on Grow, what this member of the President's cabinet had to say to Nebraska farmers and ranchers. And they strike while the iron is hot. We visit a cattle branding to show you the sights and sounds. And kids in Wood River get their hands dirty in a real-world classroom. It's time to grow. Nebraska farmers sound off on trade, ethanol, even fake meat. As the Secretary of Agriculture returns to Nebraska, we head to Alliance for more.
There's a lot of hungry world out there, and we got the people that can feed them.
The world wants what Nebraska grows.
They love your beef.
Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue returns to the beef state.
We're not used to this kind of thing. He's been out here at least twice that I know of.
Perdue calls himself an aggressive advocate for American farmers and ranchers.
Back to the present administration. They're resilient, they're hardy, but they're hurting. And that's what I'm taking the message back to the president, is that they're patriots, Mr. President, but they need your help.
As you know, trade is extremely important to Nebraska.
Perdue acknowledged the president's approach has resulted in strained relations as China considers tariffs on soybeans and other products.
He understands there's going to be some discomfort in these until we get it done, but he believes his vision is to make agriculture whole again.
This is the fourth tour you've taken, I believe.
Governor Pete Ricketts moderated a Q&A session while ranchers sat on pallets of feed at an egg supply business in Alliance. Ricketts said China remains a market with huge potential.
The president had really challenged our trade negotiators to help close the trade deficit with China through agricultural means. He believes they can double their imports from the U.S. in agricultural products. That'd be another $20 to $40 billion of ag products.
Perdue said he's found common themes on his travels, like trade and the Farm Bill.
The president said, get out there in the heartland and tell me what's on people's mind.
Ranchers appreciate his plain-spoken approach.
He really does really appreciate his words and his knowledge.
He talked about ethanol, fake meat, rural broadband, and said there's a common theme of expanding opportunities for the nation's farmers and ranchers.
How important it is that we get profitability back into farming, and that's what our number one goal is, and to really get young people coming back to the farm. There's nothing like profit that won't cure that.
The Ag Secretary's visit comes during a time of great uncertainty. NAFTA talks are ongoing, and as we mentioned, China remains a source of contention. And while Perdue's visit didn't yield any big breakthroughs, Steve Nelson of Nebraska Farm Bureau says it's reassuring to hear where things stand straight from the Secretary.
One of the things that stands out to me is that this administration and this Department of Agriculture, this Secretary of Agriculture, really takes the issues head on, and when he says he's going to look into something or do something, he follows through.
Nelson was one of several Farm Bureau state presidents who sent a letter to Perdue this week. Nelson says trade with China is worth more than $4 billion to Midwest states. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the House votes no on the first draft of the Farm Bill. NTV's Lauren Coomer has reaction.
The bill does not pass.
The Farm Bill focuses on combining stricter work and job training requirements for food stamp recipients with a renewal of farm subsidies. Governor Pete Ricketts says that's something the state is already working on.
One of the things we've been doing here in Nebraska is we're rolling out a program to help our families on SNAP get better paying jobs. So I think there's certainly an opportunity to find something here to help those families. For example, we've rolled this out now in Grand Island, Columbus, Hastings, and Norfolk.
Governor Ricketts says the state has been able to help 25% of the families on food stamps through this voluntary program.
All those families have reduced or eliminated their need for SNAP, that food stamp program. So, and frankly, get better paying jobs, better quality of life. All of that goes along with it. So this is something we're being a pioneer here in Nebraska and helping to do. So I think that having the rest of the country look at ideas and how we can help those families get better jobs is a great idea.
In the past, farmers have seen the bill go through the process several times in order to pass.
Nebraska agriculture needs a steady and reliable place to market our products, our grains, our cattle. We have the golden triangle in Nebraska: cattle, ethanol, corn. It is magic here. But we need a solid market for our products.
Many farmers are hoping that, again, that they are making sure that they have access to both international and domestic markets, that we're not facing a lot of constraints from a regulatory perspective, and that the market signals will provide some surety to those who are producing raw materials that both domestic and foreign markets will be open to them, and that in the event of a catastrophic drop in price, that there's going to be some safety net available to them.
Secretary Perdue says the president has made it a directive: get E15 into more cars. Friday, Governor Ricketts officially welcomed the largest biofuels plaza in the state. The Bosselman Travel Center near Grand Island features E85, E15, and soy biodiesel, and they celebrate during this Renewable Fuels Month.
Renewable fuels are great for the consumer. It will reduce your cost of fueling up. It's great for the environment. It's also great for Nebraska. And by having this along Interstate 80, we help expose a lot of people outside the state of Nebraska to all those benefits.
A deal is in the works to allow higher blends of ethanol, 15% instead of 10% year-round. That might not be ready for the start of the summer driving season, but ethanol advocates say things are looking positive. After a slow start to the planting season, things pick up. In the month of April, extension educators say the cold was record-breaking low, causing planting to be set back a couple of weeks. He says farmers have been worried, but have caught up. Most of the corn finished. Some farmers still planting the last of soybeans. A Phelps County farmer says they're feeling good with where things are at.
We weren't really nervous. We were more frustrated with it being later than normal. It just doesn't seem like our springs are warming up and staying consistently warm. A lot of up and down temp swings.
We're on track, that we're not in a serious mode yet, and so we're hopeful we'll get a rain maybe coming in this weekend would be very helpful. I think if we get a rain and we get things growing, that'll be really good.
And as we mentioned, planting hitting the home stretch. 72% of corn has been planted. That's right about on track. 26% emerged, also pretty typical for this time of year. Soybeans planted, 41%. That's actually ahead of schedule. Storing grain on farm is popular as farmers try to catch a market rally. NTV's Ife Sanachi, Ivo Simba has more.
Full grain bins like the ones you see behind me are of course a measure of success. But what do you do when you can't empty them? It's an issue many farmers across our area are dealing with.
When you harvest grain, it is a good feeling to have the bins full because you know you had a crop to harvest, but it's still, you have to look down the road and be able to have a plan to sell it.
Under pressure from a struggling farm economy, at harvest time, many farmers, unsatisfied with commodity prices, choosing to store away that grain, hoping for higher offers down the road.
The bin right behind me has a wheat in it that's been there for 2 years to wait for the higher price to come by.
Cambridge farmer Vaughn Johnson tells me it's an economic strategy that will cost you.
Anytime you store grain, you have some expenses add up. Even just interest expense on the note at the bank that you're not able to pay off. You have to add that in. There's also a risk of losing the grain to insects or moisture in the bin.
You only go ahead with that if your expected benefit is higher than your cost.
University of Nebraska at Lincoln commodity marketing professor Fabio Matos says before you fill your bin, you should weigh the costs versus the benefits and make sure you have a reason to expect prices to go up.
You can't just sit down and hope that things will turn out fine and the price will suddenly go up.
Instead of waiting to see what will happen in the market, Matos says you should create a marketing plan before harvest begins.
A good marketing strategy should have specific instructions or specific points at which you have to make a decision whether to sell your commodity. Okay, so you can't just wait forever until the price turns out to be profitable or turns out to be beneficial for you.
After a meatpacking plant in Hastings closed, now another opens. Flanders Provisions is committed to bringing 50 jobs to the Hastings area. Last Monday, they began production with 32 employees.
We're creating more jobs. People say you know, we always hear from the community that we need to create more jobs in our community because we need to be bringing more people here, and that's why, you know, a reason why it's great that we have Flanders here. 50 jobs with the potential to be many more than that.
Flanders moves to Hastings from Georgia, where folks tell us the company was landlocked and could not expand. Now they have room to grow and could bring many more than just 50 jobs to the area. Later, high school kids in Scott Frost's hometown hit the field, but not the football field. We'll explain. Up next, we take you to Custer County to see cattle branding, sights and sounds.